Hello, listeners. This is your host, Random Nerd, on the Critical Thinking Nerd podcast. I'm trying something different with my podcast and want to take a different approach. I'm going to pause on the racism series for now and dive into the topic of gun control. Not just because of recent events, but also how, and more specifically, the why, it is always a hot topic when any mass shootings happen. In addition, why is it an election hot button for those who preach to ban guns? I will share in-depth research on gun control and how it affects modern times, specifically after 1960. I use 1960 as a starting point, as Brittany Hughes shared in an Instagram video on the gun control issue itself. The video is the same from my It Starts at Home series, but I will use it as a starting point to share factual information with you. Yes, this series will include political perspectives and other political aspects pertaining to gun control. Depending on the information that I share, I may include deeper research and upload it to my Beacon's membership subscription store. To follow the podcast principles of truth, transparency, and fairness, being transparent with you, I am pro Second Amendment, I am a firearm advocate, and I do have firearm experience. With that said, it is responsible gun ownership. And for that topic itself, why responsible gun ownership is always attacked. These episodes may be longer than my previous podcast series, as there is a lot of information to research, cross-research, and share with you. Let's begin.
We've now had more mass shootings in 2024 than there have been days in the year. We need to ban assault weapons.
First of all, define assault weapon, because all weapons can be used for assault. If you're talking specifically about the AR-15, it's been in mass circulation since the 1960s, but it's only been used in mass shootings since Sandy Hook in 2012. So, what changed between the 1960s and 2012? Well, in 1968, 85% of children under the age of 18 live with two parents. Today, more than 1 in 4 children live in single-parent homes. In 1960, 72% of American adults were married. By 2010, it was 51%, and today it's 45%. In 1970, 40% of U.S. households consisted of a married mother and father with children. Today, it's less than 18%. In 1960, more than 63% of Americans regularly attended church. Today, it's less than 30%. Roughly 300,000 teens now identify as transgender, more than double the number since 2017. 1 in 5 teens suffers from clinical depression. The gun isn't the problem. The gun hasn't changed. Our society has changed. Our families have broken down, largely thanks to left-wing policies, and that is why they blame the gun.
In addition, here is another example of how gun control affects modern society. This is a TikTok from Dawn Johnson.
This person's daughter isn't under 18 because no child should ever touch a gun. Would you like...
Hi, gun advocate here. Infantry Army. Have 3 kids. They're now 17, 18, and 20. They've been handling firearms since they were 4. I was born in 1970. You see, what was across the nation when I was born was we would get up about between 8 and 9 years old was when it started. We would get up on the weekends and we would run downstairs and feed ourselves in front of the TV, watching a bunch of the morning cartoons. As soon as we were done, grab our 22s and our BBs, depending on which one we wanted that day, and then we would disappear for hours and go shooting with actual 22s. Actual little bullets. We'd actually go shooting. Not an adult in fucking sight. Teenagers would drive to school with their high-powered, as you call it, rifles in their trucks and in their cars. And the principals would come out, and the teachers would come out, go to school, they'd be in a school parking lot. That new Marlin? That new Winchester? They'd bring it out, they'd hold it, they'd talk about it on school grounds. My God, don't have a heart attack just yet. And then they'd show the student their firearm that they were carrying. Back then, when we had people who said they were going to shoot up the school because it wasn't a gun-free zone, what we did is the teachers And the students would take turns with their rifles in tandem, in between classes, and go sit around the school doors to make sure nobody came through. We didn't even call the cops. We didn't bother them with shit like that. They had real crime to worry about. And then along came the 90s when these feel-good liberals and these bleeding heart individuals who just think kids cannot be trusted unless it's gender-assigning surgery. You know, at 6, you can go ahead and decide if you want to have permanent mutilation done to your body, or steroids or estrogen put in your body that's going to mutilate it permanently from the inside out. But other than that, we can't trust them to make a decision for themselves, correct? But, you know, that we need to have gun-free zones because of a college shooting that occurred with the Guard. It was the Army National Guard that had been called out to a protest in Kent. And that's why they decided to make the public schools gun-free zones. Now, here's what happens with gun-free zones. The only people who don't carry guns in those gun-free zones are law-abiding citizens, the ones who do care whether or not they break the law. The ones who don't care still carry. But I digress. Going back to your no child should ever under 18 touch a firearm. 4 years old, my kids started with Nerf guns, proper control, proper etiquette, fire pointed down range, finger off the trigger, and center mass is what we practiced. At 8 years old, they got their first rifle, which they were able to go ahead and shoot at will. We still made sure that mommy and daddy were around because we had the bleeding heart liberals who were screaming, "Oh my God, there's a child with a firearm. He is going to hurt somebody." Meanwhile, they're the ones throwing the temper tantrum like a kindergartner, screaming and ranting and raving and absolutely causing a scene while my child is very quietly standing there looking at them saying, "Ma'am, you okay? Do you need medical help?" At 12 to 14, depending on maturity level, each one was different, was when they got their first handguns. And yes, handguns. We bought them. They had access. There was not a time in our house, unless we had another child there that was not of mine, that they did not have access. And the reason being is because we would lock them up when other children were there, because I don't trust you all to go ahead and take care of your kids and teach them proper gun safety. I don't trust you all to go ahead and teach your kids how to go ahead and be around firearms. I don't trust your kids at all, as far as I can throw them, especially some of y'all who get on here on TikTok and talk about, well, like you are. But, matter of fact, one of our places that we had, majority, every time that, we moved 3 times when they were teenagers, but when we moved, the microwave over the stove, we disconnected it. You could just simply unplug it. Guess what went in there? Firearm. Because you never know where you're going to be if somebody breaks into your house. And I lived in Washington State. And in Washington State, they don't let the cops do their job. So we were pretty much on our own. So there wasn't, including the bathroom, there wasn't a room in our house that did not have a firearm. We never had a fatal shooting. We never had a shooting that we had to worry about. We never had anybody who in anger was shot. We never had them throwing their phone, my kids talk about the firearms with their friends. They consider them to be tools. So, when you talk about no child under 18 should ever have a firearm, you wouldn't give them drugs, you wouldn't give them smokes, you would allow them to decide whether or not once more they can go ahead and permanently disfigure themselves so that they can be an alternate gender to feel good. But you wouldn't trust them with a firearm because you don't know how to raise children. And I'll say that. I'll draw the line there. My kids have had access. Like I said, 17, 18, and 20. 17-year-old now lives with her father because she's going to college. They were homeschooled. I wouldn't call it college. She's applying for a police academy. They're doing the waivers and everything for her to go. But she's 17 going to that. My 20-year-old's going into the military. And my 18-year-old is a joint partner, in our very lucrative family business. So, yeah. I don't think you should be saying that no children should have it. You should quantify. No children of a progressive should have it. Because apparently they're the ones you can't trust with firearms. I said what I said.
So let's start with 1960s of family dynamics. As a recap, my Starts at Home series shares more in-depth research for responsible parenting. Continue to episode 2 for a deeper dive into how gun control started. If you found this episode meaningful, please continue to listen to my next episode as I dive deeper and research further to share my knowledge with you. Thank you.